This is going to be an introduction to multi-pitch, like step-by-step, like a how-to, and not necessarily, or not at all comprehensive. There's going to be a lot of things that could be gone into with much more depth, but I just am not going to for the lack of time. And I'm trying to keep it kind of entry level, going from single pitch outdoors to multi-pitch. I'm going to try and recommend some resources along the way, and offer alternatives whenever possible, like can you use locking carabiners here, or can you use non-locking. But there's a lot of stuff that's just, there's too much to talk about, and you can find that elsewhere, either on this page or on YouTube or just all throughout Google. The Mountain Project forums are a really good place to start. But other than that, the only other thing we're saying is I'm assuming you know a couple things. So I'm assuming you know how to tie a clove hitch, a figure eight on a bite, that like some stuff that you should know how to do by the time you get here. You know how to use belay devices in certain ways. You're familiar with the concept of what a redundant system is. There's just a couple things that I'm willing to take that you already understand, but other things I'll try and go into more detail. Other than that, I'm tied in here, and then my follower, my partner, my second, is going to be tied in with a figure eight on a bite on a blue carabiner down there. We'll get to that later, just keep that in mind for now. But yeah, in this video I'm going to cover the small differences between swing leading and block leading. So swing leading being my partner and I are climbing this route, and I lead one pitch, he leads another. I lead one pitch, he leads another. And as opposed to block leading, which is I lead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many. I lead in blocks. So I lead in a block of 5 pitches, or a block of 2 hours. So I'll lead for a block of 2 hours, he leads for a block of 2 hours. I lead for a block of 3 pitches, he leads for a block of 3 pitches. But all of those things are not as hugely significant as you might think. But yeah, let's get started. So first, primarily, the very first thing you want to do is, before you even start climbing, you're on the ground, you've got your rack. If it's trad climbing, you know, oh, this route emphasizes hand size protection. If it's sport climbing, you know exactly how many quick draws you need. For the purposes of this video, we're going to be doing sport. These are going to be bolted anchors. Fundamentally, not that much would change if they were trad anchors. You would just need to know how to evaluate placements and make sure they're good. But this is going to be sport, not a huge disparity between reality of what it would be if it were trad. You can infer the differences. But so if it's sport, you want to know how many quick draws you need, make sure you have enough water, you know how to get down. That's a big one. Know your descent really well. That's a lot of things people take for granted in multi-pitch. But other than that, you and your partner say, okay, I'm going to lead this block, you can lead this block, or let's swing leads. You want to know exactly what your commands are, so on belay, off belay, on me, on you, whatever your commands are, you want to make sure you know them and they're communicated well between the two of you. Anyway, so I'm leading up. In this case, I'm the leader, I'm the climber, and my belayer's on the ground. So I'm leading up all the way, and then I get to the anchor. So here is the anchor that I will be using, or the bolts that I'll be using to build the anchor, off of which I will belay my partner. So I'm going to build some stuff up here, and then I'm going to attach my climber to that and then pull them up. Because now, when I get here and I put them on belay, I'm the belayer and they're the climber. I'm the leader because I did it first, and they're the second. So I get here, I get to the belay. There's a nice big ledge that I can stand on and maneuver stuff. If there's not a big ledge, you can attach yourself with something like a personal anchor sling to that. It can be anything really. If it's not a nice ledge, you can attach yourself directly to the anchor with a rope. But because this is kind of intro to multi-pitch, we're just going to assume that there's a relatively good stance here. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my 2 or 3 pieces of protection. In this case, we're going to have 3, but it can be 2 or 4 if all your trad pieces are marginal. I'm going to go ahead and clip my carabiners to the bolts. So now these can be non-lockers. That makes it marginally less safe, but these really do not necessarily need to be locking carabiners. Now for the anchor building material itself. You can either use the rope, which we are not going to be doing, that's a little bit more advanced, or you can use cord. So this is 6 or 7 millimeter cord. You can use 8 millimeter, but that's getting kind of thick, and then just this Dyneema sling. We're not going to be using this right now. The differences are almost nothing, but when you get into some of the more alpine environments where the lightweight really matters, and Dyneema does much better when it gets wet than something like cord, but cord is cheap, it's multi-purpose, you can cut it to length. We're just going to use cord for this example. This cord is tied together with a double fisherman's, and we're going to clip it to our bolts so that we can start building our anchor. So there are 1 million anchors that you can build out of cord. I'm going to be building one called the Cordelette, which just involves taking one section or strand of the rope between each of these carabiners. I have 3 here, so I'll do it again. I'm going to take one of each, but if there were only 2 carabiners here, so like if you only had 2 bolts for your anchor, you just take the one, but we have 3. So if you want, and if you're using locking carabiners, you can lock them now. You're not going to open them up for the rest of the time until you take it all apart, and you just get one of each strand and pull it all down. Now the knot, the bend down here that's joining the cord to itself, is in the way. We're going to make this our master point, our main load bearing point in our anchor. So we're going to go ahead and slide this knot up near one of the carabiners and equalize everything, so this is now out of the way. Now I'm just going to tie an overhand or figure 8. I'm going to tie an overhand just because it takes less material, and this is the right amount for me and for the current setup that I have. But you can tie a figure 8. It would be that much stronger and a little bit easier to untie, but the differences are negligible. So this Cordelette anchor is one of probably hundreds, realistically. I would encourage you, with everything I have, to watch a video called A Primer on Climbing Anchors. It goes into sliding X's and quads and cordelettes and not all, but a good intro to anchor building and what you should be looking for and how to build an anchor off of just a tree or a rock or whatever else. I really, really encourage you to watch it. It's a great video. So this is the Cordelette anchor, and it has a number of components. It has 3 legs. If we didn't have this bolt, it would just have the 2, but it's got these 3 legs. Each of them is composed of 2 strands of cord. Taking one of each of the strands, one strand from each leg, gives you the shelf. So this is safe to clip into, but only if there's a carabiner clipped into down here. All these 3 loops where they come together is our master point. So we're going to go ahead and clip our belay device into our master point, like so. And now we're safe to clip up to the shelf. If we didn't have a carabiner in the master point and we have something clipped to the shelf, there's a small chance that as we weight our shelf biner, this knot will roll and deform off the master point, so it all just comes spilling out. So you need to be sure that you put the master point carabiner here before you weight this carabiner. So we're going to do that now. Screw that down, and now I'm going to clove hitch myself into the shelf. At this point, I can call off belay because now I'm safe. But if you wanted a redundancy, you can use something like your personal anchor sling off to one of the bolts, which that would be fine for me because I trust this. I trust the rope. It's an acceptable anchor for me. I wouldn't necessarily be looking for a backup to that. But if I did want one, I could just put it off to one of these bolts. Or if you don't have anything like that on you, you can just reach a little bit down on the back side of your clove hitch and tie something like an overhand and clip that to one of the pieces over here. not terribly important. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to leave that how it is. So my partner now knows that I am at this ledge. I'm in a really good position because I called off belay. He's taking the belay device off, and now he's getting all his stuff he's putting on his backpack, and he's just getting ready to start climbing up after me. So now I'm the belayer, and he's the climber, or the second, or the follower, or my partner. So the first thing I need to do is get all the rope between me and him tight, right? So if I've got a 60-meter rope, there's almost never going to be pitches that are the exact length of your rope, right? They're maybe like 100 feet or somewhere around there. That means there's going to be slack between you and your partner. So if it's 100 foot of climbing and I have 180 feet of rope, 191 feet of rope, there's going to be 90 feet of slack that I need to pull out, or whatever the number is. So first, I'm going to pull all that slack out so that the rope is taut on my partner. And as opposed to just pulling it up and piling it on the ground, you can put a quick draw or just another carabiner. You can use this one, but if it's higher, typically that's better. Which, now that I think about it, I'm just going to use this. You can redirect the rope through that carabiner and then just pull all the slack out. So I'm going to do that. And be patient with me here. But the point of this is just so that I can take the rope tight on my on my climber, and then they can be put on belay, on a belay device. And the belay device I'm using right now is this tube style or plaquette or plate or guide device. You can use a gree-gree, or you can use certain hitches. Even if you don't have a belay device, there are hitches like the Garda hitch and the Munter hitch. Would definitely recommend the Munter hitch over the Garda hitch that you can use to belay someone up. But the point of stacking this rope up here is so that all the rope is out between me and my partner. So now, almost all the slack is out. I can take this down. And now, when I pull on it eventually, because maybe this is going over a ledge and I can't see my partner, I'll feel it get tight, right? Because that's all the slack out, and my partner will yell, "That's me," or whatever the command is for where you are. I use "that's me." So now the rope is tight, and I could just start, as they climb, just start pulling them up, but I obviously would not be able to hold them if they fell. So I'm going to put them on belay on this belay device. Boop. Now I'm going to let them know, once I get this carabiner on here, that they are on belay, or that the belay is on. If they ask the question on belay, then you would reply belay is on, or you can just say climb when ready, because that means that they will now know that you have them secured and they can begin to climb. So my partner's climbing, and then if they fall, and I'm not using something like a gree-gree or a toucan or other devices that allow you to lower from the top, it can be kind of tricky to lower off of a tube style device. So this is another instance in which I'm not going to cover how to lower them off of this. So maybe they were climbing above a roof, so the climb went like this and then up a face immediately after a roof, and they fall after the roof, and now they're just dangling and they can't swing back to get started again. You would need to lower them down to a feature that they can grab onto so that they can start the climb again. And you need to know how to do that, but I'm not going to cover it in this video. But you should be aware of things like that. Mountain Project forums, YouTube, VDiff. You can Google VDIFF. Wonderful resources for things like that. So here comes my partner, and they arrive at the anchor. Now, this blue figure 8 on a bite represents them. The orange figure 8 on a bite with the blue carabiner represents them. And now, realistically, they're fine. I know that this device will lock off if they fall. They don't necessarily need to clip into something else up here, but you want to have a really theoretically sound system. So even though realistically this would be fine, we are going to take the back side of their rope. So here's the climber side, and it goes into the brake side. We're going to take the brake side and use a locking carabiner. We're going to clip this one to the master point, like so, and just tie a quick clove hitch so that they can remove themselves from the belay device, or so that we can remove them from the belay device either way. So there's the clove hitch. That's locked. Now we can remove them from the belay device. And take that with us again. Or if they're leading, we can give it to them. But either way, the belay device is now no longer necessary. So it should be kind of obvious what needs to happen now. I'm gonna cinch this up a little bit so that you can see where my climber is, where my partner is. But realistically, this would just be done while they were still on the belay device. Right? So now here's the current setup. My partner is the blue carabiner, and then it goes to this clove hitch, and then if they have like a backup up here, that's separate. And then there's the rope trails down to a big pile on the ground, then comes back up to my clove hitch, my attachment point, and then back down to me. So if I'm leading now, if they're leading, I can just take my belay device, whatever I'm going to be using to belay them up from the bottom, and they can take the top belay device, so I give this to them, and then I put them on belay just on the back side of their clove hitch, right? Because the rope has been piled up nice and neatly. I just pulled it straight onto the ground. So the rope was piled like this, and then it's just going to come right off the top of that pile as well. If I were leading next, so the person who just led is leading again, I would need to grab that rope stack and flip it over, right? Because as I was piling up the rope, so that here's my tie-in, here's all the rope, and then here's my partner's tie-in. The rope got piled up on itself like that. So now it's in really good shape. If my partner wants to lead next, the rope will just come off itself. But I need to flip the rope stack so that I can smoothly climb. I don't want my belayer to have to be worrying about fixing the rope while I'm in the middle of climbing. So now I can just put the belay device on my belay loop, and they're safe to come off of their clove hitch and start climbing. There's one thing of which you should be very aware, is that now you'll notice if they fall, they're going to fall onto my belay device. Like they're going to fall onto me. This can be really difficult. This can be a really difficult thing to catch. As a belayer, it can be very difficult to catch them if they fall straight down, as opposed to, because you're always used to them pulling you up, now they're pulling you down. You need to break in an upward position. You can have something called a factor 2 fall. It can be really dangerous. So before they remove themselves from their clove hitch, or you remove them, either way, you want to redirect the rope through something as a means of, it's like if you're just sport climbing, right? So you can use this carabiner here, or this bolt, and then there's their attachment point, again from the back side of their clove hitch, and a clip right there, right? So that's fine. Realistically, you would like to have this as high as possible, right? So if there's a bolt just within arm's reach, you can just clip that bolt and it achieves the same thing. Or if you don't have anything and it really is just this hanger and this carabiner, you can just open up this locker and clip it to that. But I would advise using another carabiner. This is called a Jesus piece. The first piece of protection off of the belay, off of the anchor of one pitch is called the Jesus piece, right? So I'm gonna take my quick draw, put it on either a bolt or on the anchor itself, redirect the rope. Now they're on belay, they've got the rope redirected to their Jesus piece, they can start climbing. So now this is just the same as normal. I'm attached at the other end of the rope, so I can just lean back onto this if I want and belay them up and out. Now the question comes, what do we do when they get to the next anchor, right? So I'm belaying all the time, that's them climbing up and away from me, they're taking the rope out of my hand, my pile's getting smaller, and then they get to the anchor and they holler off belay. So now we're just in the reverse, right? So in the first half of the video, I was the belayer, I was the leader. Now I'm going to be the follower. So they got to the anchor, they say off belay. I can remove the belay device, call up belay off, and now they can start doing what we did a couple minutes ago. Eventually, what's going to happen is they're going to take all of the rope up. Remember how we were drawing the rope up? They're going to take all the rope up till it's tight, and it's going to look like this. I'm gonna remove this for clarity. This was just a redirect. They're going to take all the rope up like we were just doing, and it's going to look like this, right? So it's kind of clustery here, and if it goes off to the right, it'll be a little more tension on this side. If it goes off to the left, you should just be aware of that. But either way, when it gets tight, we want to let them know, hey, that's me, and then we can wait to listen for on belay or belay on, and then hear belay on. So now I know I'm on belay, and I no longer need this attachment, right? Because I'm standing on a nice ledge. And I can break the anchor down safely, because if I fall, even if I fall while I'm standing on this ledge, I'm on the belay device, and the fall would not matter in any real way. So I'm gonna drop this, but you should still be able to imagine. Actually, I think I can probably hold this. All right, so I'm gonna remove myself. My primary attachment was the rope. Now I can break all the rest of this down and take it up with me for the next pitch. Alright, so it should be pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised. You need two of these. You need two pieces of anchor building material, right? So you have one that the leader always builds the anchor, but you need two because the follower still needs to be able to be attached to something. And it's not like when you give them the belay device, as we did before they set off. I gave them the belay device. I gave them this one that can be used to belay from the top. I can't give them the anchor material, so they need to have their own. And then we get to the top, I get to the top of the pitch, and then we do it all again, right? So it's a very straightforward process conceptually, but there's some little things like having the rope stack flipped and knowing how to lower someone, and there's a great deal of potential things that you might need to know that could become relevant one day, and that you should familiarize yourself with just in case. I really can't recommend multi-pitch climbing. I think it's just multipitchclimbing.com, people.bath.co.uk, something like that. Multipitchclimbing.com will get you there. Mountain Project, look on the Mountain Project forums. If you have any questions, people over there typically will give you answers. They're not always the nicest, but they have good answers. You can look on VDiff, V-I-D-F-F, and again, watch that A Primer on Climbing Anchors video. It's really well edited, it's really succinct, it's concise, but it's very informative. But yeah, other than that, that's Multi-Pitch 1101. That's intro to multi-pitch. There are going to be other videos on this page for little things in between, so like different anchors and things like that. But this is a good starting point for multi-pitch in a step-by-step format. Thank you.